and we want to invite our viewers who are live on TV to participate in this discussion. And with me here, we have a group of panelists that I will introduce shortly. But before that, we are into the inaugural National Exports Logistics Dialogue, the first of its kind in this country. And the theme today is identifying bottlenecks in exports logistics and establishing solutions. So today, let me say that this year, in line with our national development strategy of promoting exports, this year, I don't know whether by chance or by planning, but it's by planning, we have been on a splurge, ladies and gentlemen, as a country. We've been on a splurge, foraging into regional markets, really. In a space of only 9 months, I think we've been to Tanzania, like my CEO mentioned. We've been to DRC, we've been to South Sudan, we've been to the UK, we've hosted the Somalia here, we've gone to Burundi. Now, that effort of opening up markets, I call that an activity, okay? We haven't yet started competing. We'll only start to compete if we begin to sort out our logistics. What do I mean? Logistics is now a key competitive factor in exports. If you don't have it, forget about competing. I'll give you an example. When we went to DRC, 200 guests, South Sudan, and if somebody told you that a kilo of meat in DRC is $14 US, how much money is that in Uganda? We're talking about 50,000 shillings, right? Around there. And then we say, oh, if a kilo of meat in Kampala costs 20,000, then why don't I go for the DRC market? Now, most of the players got excited and said, oh, I must be here. When we came back, people were starting to organize and start to export to these markets until they found out, it's not viable. And what was sucking up the costs is the cost of logistics. The landing cost to take a kilo of meat to DRC is so high. So most of our business people gave up. So, and we left DRC knowing that one, I think I'll go to Mr. Sabit later, one of the resolutions we came with for the DRC is to do end-to-end export infrastructure for this country. How can we facilitate a Ugandan who has something to take? And you don't forget about the logistics nightmare. Go there, show up with your product, it meets the quality standards and everything, and then the market is there. So that's a bottleneck. Then for purposes of, to be sure that we are on the same page, when we mention export logistics, we are talking about a network of services that facilitates the movement of goods across borders and within borders. So, and that operation involves transportation, involves warehousing, brokerage, express delivery, terminal and port services. Now, when you look at that, you can see that we need many players across the private sector and across the government. That's why we have this panel that cuts across all these people. And starting on my near left, I have Mr. Kairos from Zone 4 International. Okay, and next is, thank you. Next is Ms. Anna Mbozo from Trademark East Africa. Later you tell us what you do. And the next one is Mr. Kavuma. I don't know whether Paul is the other one, from Jubilee Alliance. And this is one of the sponsors of the event. Thank you so much. And then I'll go to my senior, Mr. Sabiti from Passage. he'll explain to us what SPACID means when it comes to that. Then we have Mr. Hayes from Uganda Free Zones Authority. It's a pleasure. We are glad to have you. And then Mr. Yebare from Uganda Cargo Consolidators Association, and also the CEO of Maritime Company. And Mr. Yebare, I want to thank you so much because like Mr. Katende mentioned earlier, you've shown the greatest passion in terms of sorting this issue. First, you took it up as a private sector initiative until you see that this effort, this operation is so big, we need other players across government and other parts of the private sector. So we are happy that you've taken that initiative, and I hope that we leave today with practical solutions on how we can achieve that. So, thank you. I'll start with the panel discussions, and I'll start with you, Anne, from Trademark East Africa. And we know that infrastructure development is one of the things that you support. You tell us if you do not. So how are you ensuring that there is safe transit of tradable products in relation to infrastructure, especially in these regional markets that we are targeting across our neighbors here, but also across Africa? And also believe that one of the things you do as an organization is to encourage export growth. What have you done, and what are you doing, and how can the private sector partner with you to take that forward?
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning.
All protocol observed. My name is Anna Namboze, and I am the Country Director for the Uganda and South Sudan country programs for Trademark East Africa. I'm so glad to be here with the logistics sector. And the question posed to me is, what have we done to ensure safe transit of tradable products to the export markets that we're looking at? Now, as Trademark East Africa, market access is really key for us, because we're here to be able to unlock the bottlenecks that are faced along the routes or in trading with our neighboring countries and beyond. So we really tackle this, maybe say in a three-pronged way. Infrastructure is what we're really well known for and has been one of our biggest targets. We also work on trade policy, and then work on the business competitiveness, which I think feeds into the second question really well.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the infrastructure. Of course, identifying the bottlenecks. When we started in 2010, our survey showed that one of the biggest bottlenecks was getting to each other's countries, just getting to Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda. And this is because at the border posts, for instance, at Mutukula, you'd spend 45 days just to cross that border. You'd spend 12 days, and so on and so forth. So our first innovation was to be able to make this transition smoother. And that's why we developed the one-stop border posts. It may seem seamless now, but if you go to Busia, Mutukula, Mirama Hills, you will see that Elegu, we already have infrastructure that can house all the government entities that are players there. You have URA, which is the lead institution there. You have immigration, you have UNBS, and also you have the players on the other side, if it is Kenya or Tanzania, so that you can clear and go smoothly. And we've seen that with these one-stop border posts. Basically, there's tremendous change in the time spent at the borders. From 45 days, you'd go to less than a day, you'd go to 4 hours, and this has been very remarkable for us. Of course, over time, now this has actually increased the trade in the region, okay? So now we're going to, if you go to Busia or Malaba, there's a bit more, bottlenecks again, but we're working with them to see what more we can do. This is actually interesting because speaking about DRC, I was in Toroko yesterday. In Toroko is Fort Portal, it's a lake port, with DRC that connects you to Bunia. So in Toroko, we have again developed what we call a one-stop border post. It's when I was there yesterday, it was raining the whole morning. It had been raining since the day before. And, you know, we're told by URA, previously, you know, when we had a small shack where we used to work, today would be a no-work day. But we have developed these facilities. The trucks were parked and could go because there's a, you know, it's all paved and concrete. And you can, you know, apart from, you can use the waters as well. So we had also passengers that were waiting because we made the facilities where they can wait. They said before you'd have trucks turning around here on a day like this because, you know, just the grounds were not passable, we would not be working, and so on and so forth. The same is happening in Elegu. Elegu is a flood-prone area, so again, previously during the rainy season, works would stop. So the crossing of these borders was really complicated. But with the one-stop border posts, this has been made easier. Talking again about DRC, last week I was at Goli. Goli is another one-stop border post that connects to Mahagi in DRC. Again, we have facilitated the construction of this, and very soon, I think, you know, construction is basically done. We're just trying to make sure all the other facilities are also complete. URA is already sitting there, but we've not officially launched. So again, when you see the progress, the trucks that are going through and the efficiency that has been created, you see that the time of transportation and the cost has been reduced. There's even a warehouse in case you need to store your goods. Up to 30 days is free. After that, there's some, you know, charges that will be levied onto you. But again, this is what we've done infrastructure-wise. Again, proceeding to the other needs of beyond transportation, and we have a Gulu Logistics Hub that has been established in Gulu to be able to help with aggregation and storage, again, facilities, cold storage, warehousing, aggregation, and it also links to the rail. So, I mean, government has, again, made a motion to move and make sure that the link to Gulu is complete. It's at the URC premises. And this also, again, will help us with South Sudan, with the DRC, and other neighboring countries. These centers, if this is the first that we've had, but if looking at the momentum and looking at how it is operationalized, then we'll be able to have more within the country. Again, I think it ties in with the logistics center that has been mentioned already today. Again, for internal trading, we have been to areas where we have markets, but the markets are very substandard, are overcrowded. And again, if you look at the small trader, these are the areas that they use. So we're building what we call the safe trade zones. The term safe trade really came up during COVID because we need to follow certain protocols. But again, it's cross-border markets that we are helping with. We have one, again, in Elegu following the ban of the market that has happened. I think they had 2 fires this year alone and 1 last year. So again, we find facilities that are, you know, have no contention. Again, flooding is an issue for us that we have to look at, again, so that we can provide a space for the women and the youth that are in that area to be able to do their business and carry on with their trade. If I move on quickly to the second question, which is export growth, what have we done and what are we doing? See, with exports, apart from the production level, we have to make sure our products are sellable beyond Uganda. Now, one of the issues we usually face is standards. When we're transporting to Kenya, we've had maize, we have, you know, milk. Standards is an issue for Ugandan produce. So what we're doing is supporting the UNBS, and I saw Mr. Ibiru here earlier, the UNBS to be able to, first of all, decentralize and have standards closer to the people, so that you don't have to travel to Kampala to be able to come and test your products. We already have 1 center in Gulu, we have 1 in Mbale, and 1 in Bara that will be launched early next year. And these have really brought the testing capacities closer to the traders so that you can test your products. We also have, we're making sure that you can be able to meet the standards that are required. We have capacity building that's going on. and also harmonization at the ESC level, because we are located in all the ESC countries and beyond. That's why we are now rebranding to Trademark Africa, but the launch of that is yet to come. So with this, we really believe that export growth will be increased. And again, also for the traders and the exporters, we have capacity building in, you know, the skills that they need, bookkeeping, basic skills, especially for the women in vulnerable communities. Okay. Because this, they need to be able to transform from being small or micro to the next level. And we've seen these stories, it is very encouraging. Maybe finally, it's just talk about the fact that we support URA in a lot of the initiatives. I'm certain many of you here are part of the authorized economic operators. We had the event last week where some more companies were onboarded. These are initiatives that are online that help you to be able to clear faster without going through the ordinary routes, creating trust with the URA, are basically some of the things that are helping with growing the exports and growing efficiency. I'll stop here for now.
Thank you, Anne, so much. And obviously, you're doing a lot. And the issue of standards that you've mentioned actually is one of the challenges that we've faced as a country. So I'm glad that it's one of the areas you're focusing on. For our online audience, please, you can participate. This dialogue is also on YouTube and also on the other social media channels. So the hashtag is NELD 2022, hashtag NELD 2022. You can follow the discussion, you can participate, you can make your contribution and ask questions as well. So I want to go to Hires from Zone 4 International. You are an airline logistics expert. And if you look at especially the DRC market, where we don't have efficient roads. So what we have right now is the air cargo. So how applicable is this method of transporting our goods to DRC from your experience compared to the others? What can we do? What are the alternatives that we can do? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Karis Odom. I am the CEO of Zone 4 International. We have a fleet of aircraft at the Entebbe International Airport, and we fly to Somalia, operations in South Sudan, DRC, as well as Tanzania. The DRC market, we've worked with a few of the logistics companies, and we're actually flying to Kisangani. And I'll give an example. Our largest aircraft carries 21 tons, and we've been flying to Kisangani mainly with actually 100% with Ugandan manufactured goods. Everything from plastic tanks, water tanks, construction materials, cosmetic products, mainly hard items. There are bad roads and there's a security problem, which is good business for us, but one of the challenges we face is that the price is too high.
Yeah.
Our customers are road-centric. They look for the means of moving their goods mainly by road or by bus, and air transportation is very expensive, as you know. To mitigate that, you need to have a return cargo. And this is the challenges we've been facing, not only in DRC, but also in Somalia, also in South Sudan as well. We can get the cargo there, but then we come back empty. So the receiver or the buyer of those goods are actually paying double.
Yeah.
If there was a cooperation whereby certain industry sectors on the other side of Uganda can increase productivity so that we can fly things back, then the price overall would be cheaper for everyone, and that would increase productivity. So that's pretty much all I have on that one.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Kairos. Some concerning experience there.
Mm.
If you are, as a country, pursuing an outward economic strategy, in other words, looking at exports, it seems like you cannot ignore the role of imports, because it seems like for us to be viable, we must get something the other side coming our way. We don't know what that is, but I'll leave that to our private sector to explore and say, okay, it seems like for me to take my goods to the DRC, I must also get something that I bring back to Uganda in order to reduce the cost of transportation. That's a key challenge to us that we need to consider. So I want to go to Jubilee. Insurance is one of the export services that we require in order to be able to take our goods to those markets and minimize losses. So what insurance policies and products do you have, and what else can be done to improve these services to serve our private sector, to enable them export to these markets?
Thank you very much, Nelson. And firstly, it's flattering for an insurer to be acknowledged as a business enabler and facilitator.
Yeah.
Because for all the dialogues we've been in for insurance, it always degenerates into a debate of not paying claims.
Yeah.
But it's quite good that this comes up. And I want to take you to the obvious. Risk is a midst trade. When you go out to trade, certainly you're going to face risk, and you have to account for it and envisage it and actually, make a provision for it. So the best risk mitigant for trade, ideally, would be insurance. And if you go the self-insurance way, then you implode on yourself. The obvious risks to exports are really the transit risks. Transit. In Kenya. So that is another risk that we carry. And there's going on discussions in Parliament about traders being compensated in Sudan. Those are risks that could ideally have been covered by insurance to one extent. And of course, when we go to Congo, the M23 is another flashpoint. That is something very, very unique that we need to look at. But it's one of those that when you declare to your insurers, they know the territory they're going through, they will actually extend to cover that. I know these are familiar risks that all the logistics colleagues of us here know, but there's something they want to hear. And as a sector, with the guidance of our regulator, fortunately I'm very well insulated with my regulator here, we are looking to innovate. And really to be a trade facilitator, we need to be looking at the export credit facilitation that is going to be given by the banks. And we know that collaterals are being fully saturated. I mean, we all borrowed up to the neck. and we still need to do business. And here is a letter being given by the bank extending a facility for exporters. Now, as insurers, of course, that we consider that as a financial guarantee, but insurance is evolving. And as members of the insurance fraternity, we're also looking at ourselves to say, look, if this is an imminent risk that is available, why not then test the waters and try and touch it? The most we can do is, at this moment, is to work with the Uganda Bankers Association membership to see what sort of facility has been extended. And of course, the terms and conditions that have been advanced to the traders in the event that it does actually advance to them. And then we need to look at what the banks require as collateral. Do they want physical, tangible property, or they can look at us with our paper? We can come with a financial guarantee, dubbed as a bond, to see that we can actually secure you, the traders, in the event that that facility is taken. So I know that is what the logistics guys here want to hear and the traders want to hear, but I can assure you it is something that the insurance industry is looking at intently, and I am sure as we evolve, we shall have a solution to that, the guidance of the regulator, because it requires us to have, a few other underliers in place, like reinsurance, authorization from the regulator to pursue, and proper underwriting. And also don't want to overlook the KYC. The beauty about it is that we are dealing with the banks, we'll be securing the banks, and the banks will have taken the initiative to do the KYC on the traders. So in a nutshell, the transit risks, certainly, those ones you're all familiar with, and we are available to carry them for you. And I've singled out the political risks and the deterioration of stock for fresh produce, which are very, very, they are on the peripheral, but we do cover them. And of course, the export trade facility that will be extended. That we are in close cohorts with the banks to see that we can actually extend our letter of guarantee to the banks to see that that can be extended to the traders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kavuma. You can see that your handicap is larger and louder than the rest. So DRC and South Sudan are one of the most risky markets in terms of security of movement of the goods there. And indeed, the other key word you mentioned is that we must innovate. And I want to underline that not just the insurers, but also all the players, we must really innovate. And one of the groundbreaking initiatives that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that export credit facility. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an initiative of the Uganda Bankers Association, of the bankers, to make sure that you have the financing that you need to be able to export your goods to these markets. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more from UBA on how to popularize this product to the private sector such that they get to know them. I want to go to Uganda Free Zones Authority. We understand that you have an export facility at Entebbe International Airport. So we would like to know, what is that facility for? How can the private sector effectively utilize that facility? Thank you.
My name is Hezkimomi Alinda. I'm the Executive Director and CEO at Uganda Free Zones Authority. Uganda Free Zones Authority is a government agency established by the Free Zones Act of 2014 for the purpose of creating an enabling environment for export-oriented investment and also create jobs within the economy. And one of the things we do is establish, manage, control, supervise free zones in Uganda. But given that we also develop, we deemed it fit to develop a free zone at Entebbe International Airport to ease the flow of goods and services into and out of the country. Maybe I just need to talk a little bit about a free zone or a special economic zone. These are geographically delimited areas for purposes of ensuring that the trade laws are different from what applies in the regular economy. For example, goods supplied into a special economic zone or a free zone are considered exports, and therefore there are certain fiscal advantages that apply to people who operate or even develop special economic zones. It's not only the government that should develop these zones, even the private sector. Actually, when I looked at that model there, was like, well, we should be able to gazette it once it is up, or even during development as a special economic zone, or a free port for that matter. So at Entebbe International Airport, learning from our peers in the region, as of course you are aware, under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, especially when you look at Article 23 of the Comprehensive Treaty on Trade in Goods, free zones or special economic zones are special purpose vehicles to enhance intra-Africa trade. And as we speak now, all the 4 international airports in Nigeria, that is Abuja, Lagos, Kano, and Port Harcourt, are all special economic zones to ease the movement of goods and services and to provide a unique trading environment that is embedded within the international free zones ecosystem to make business easy. So learning from that and experiences from elsewhere, we decided to establish a free zone at the Entebbe International Airport. Now, once that facility is completed, we'll make sure that all the issues that impede or hinder business, international business, are provided for and resolved in that free zone and elsewhere in the free zones that we will establish. Maybe just need to mention that, you know, the World Bank has ranked us under the Logistics Performance Index, 102 out of 160 the countries that participated in the 2020 analysis. And that is not good for us, 120 out of 160. And some of the issues that we're looking at in that index were customs clearance, the enabling infrastructure. This includes the warehouses, the ICT backbone, and so on and so forth. Ease of arranging shipment, breaking bulk, repackaging, remodeling, the quality of logistics services, the timeliness, as well as the tracking and tracing. So by having that facility at Entebbe International Airport, we want to make it a center where when you're operating in there, all these facilities will be provided to you. And with, again, they will be incentivized. There will be some fiscal incentives, will incentivize exporters, no excise duty, no payment of duty on all imports into the production process, including packaging materials. You don't have to pay duty for that. We'll make sure that your power is maybe, we are targeting about 99.7% uptime in our special economic zones and free zones in Uganda. We want to make sure that the water that you use in that special economic zone or free zone is not VAT exempt, because a free zone is not part of the customs territory of Uganda. IT-enabled services to enable business process outsourcing, cargo tracking, and tracing. So all these facilities will be there, and we believe that we have also a trade center where all government agencies that will that enable exports to move seamlessly will be housed in that free zone. We are looking at URA, we are looking at UNBS, and others that enable exports to move. So as a whole, we are trying, and that's just one of those that we are planning to do, and probably it will be the smallest because others will be grand. So we believe that by establishing these free port special economic zones, we are opening up Uganda to the rest of the world, because we believe that unless and if we have the Made in Uganda label in the rest of East Africa, the rest of Africa, and the rest of the world, then we are not integrated wholly into the world of export business. So that's our contribution towards enabling exports by providing these services and logistics to enable the private sector to latch on and derive maximum benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Chimomi. I wonder, because the private sector is impatiently waiting to utilize that facility, what timelines are we looking at for the opening? The second one, you mentioned that our ranking of 120 on the export performance index is poor. Do we have a target? Where do we want to be on that? Just to follow up on those two.
Thank you. I'll begin with the last one. Usually, every time you want to rate yourself as a good performer, always be in the top quintile, the top 25%. So out of 160, when you divide by 4, we should be at 40 or below in the rank. So that's our target. And as far as the timelines for opening the Entebbe International Airport Free Zone, by the end of this financial year, that's in the next 7 months or so, 30th June, we'll be at about 85% completion rate. And by by December of 2023, we should be commissioning that facility, and it will be available to the private sector for use.
Thank you, Mr. Kimomi. Ladies and gentlemen, December 2023, the private sector and all stakeholders, we should be really coming together to go and launch that facility and start utilizing it. Mr. Yebale, I'll come back to you later because you're going to react to all these discussions, being the person who is in this business day to day on behalf of the other players in the logistics sector in this country. So, but allow me to go to Mr. Sabiti from PASAID. One of the reasons why PASAID was set up is to make sure that this discussion is consolidated, that our efforts are not scattered across different players across the country. So we have one channel where we can have this discussion and build something coherent. So what can we do? You had every player doing something to harmonize this discussion. What do we need to succeed in building our export logistics infrastructure and enhancing our logistics performance?
Thank you. Is actually, is it audible?
So let's switch off that other mic to avoid the echo. When this one, press hard.
In brief, PASAID is completed in full as the Presidential Advisory Committee on Exports and Industrial Development. It brings together both the private sector and the public sector to actually meet the export targets set by the President, which are shared across the private sector and public sector. And PASAID has a target overall of increasing exports by 2027, $3 billion in revenue, that is US dollars. It's a mammoth task, but still possible, because if you look at some of these countries in Europe, how much revenue they post, it's more than that. So today, the discussion on efficiency in trade logistics is absolutely important for Uganda. When I saw on TV the first oil rig come in, I was very excited. But there is a lot that happens behind the scenes to get this oil rig there. My question was, is the transporter Ugandan? Is the clearing and forwarding agent Ugandan? So it raises a lot of questions around competitiveness. And it shows you that if we are not competitive as a country, we lose out in many areas. And regarding logistics, I have an encyclopedia here, Mr. Charles Kaleba. Dubai and Singapore, by the time Uganda got independence, were ahead. They were fishing villages. Dubai shares a lot with Uganda, oil and gas. Location, we are located in the center of a great region where you can access the DRC and Central African Republic, South Sudan, and all these areas. They did many things, including improving infrastructure, but being efficient in trade logistics. So I would really, before I forget, appeal to the private sector to focus on this in terms of advocacy. Mr. Hayes, we are not doing well in logistics performance index, about actually 2.9 out of 5, but I think we can do it. We can't talk about exports when we don't have the product. Why am I saying this? I have heard all of us boast we have good soils, we have good rains. That is true. But how competitive are we? I'll tell you that Uganda every year loses export revenue at destination more than $100 due to interceptions. These are Ugandan exporters who export so many products, chilies, avocados, and the rest. When they get to destination, they find that these products do not necessarily qualify with the standards of destination. So let us first fix that, deal with the laws, and we are happy this week we are dealing, all of us in the private sector and government, with a directive from His Excellency the President to fix these laws. Some of the laws are older than all of us, 1964 laws to do with animal health, even plant health. How do these chemicals get here? So all these, we must sort them out. To go to your question, and arising from the feedback we got from DRC and all these markets, and I like what Kenneth said, we have actually markets in this region, and what the chairman, the EDPSFU said about African Continental Free Trade Area. So in DRC, particularly in Goma, where we trade across the borders, Uganda's stretch in the whole of Western, much of it is with the DRC, and people are trading, both formally and informally. So what they need as export infrastructure, and these are Ugandan exporters, I hope we have exporters in this room. Do we? Even if you are not an exporter, my grandmother is going to be a producer under the Parish Development Board, produce excess, and it will end up in DRC. Now, what an exporter requires with the border with the DRC is a facility where he can deposit these goods with an off-taker called Kareva Limited, who pays him money, even gives him a promissory note that I have received your goods. Then you'll get people from DRC to come and buy near the border. By doing this, we are actually achieving two things. Number one, avoiding the challenges with trading across the border in uncharted territory. You know the non-tariff barriers. Mr. Chinene there every day is fighting over drivers being killed across the border in South Sudan in transit. So if you have these products at the border, you'll get people to buy. Number two, we have a few challenges to do with the exchange of currencies. In Goma, there is no bank today that can exchange currency with the Ugandan bank. Our exporters, following our visit, they got deals to export eggs, meat. In Goma, there are 5 flights, more than 5. I have Zone A and Kavis here, which off-take everything. But how do these people bring money here? So, you see, we have to solve all that. But as the private sector and Ugandans, I would want us to join our heads together, particularly focus on port infrastructure. We have ports, like Port Bear, like Ginger, and the counterpart ports, by the way, in Kenya for Ginger have been revamped. So what is the infrastructure on the Uganda side? Can it support exports? Port Bear, where we have people trying to export coffee, but we need to improve its capacity. For us to be competitive, competitive trade logistics means that we are actually ensuring there is efficiency in cost and quality. So if we have to export coffee by container up to Mombasa, instead of using this Lake Victoria, we are not being competitive. I'll give you another example around border infrastructure. Trademark did a great job to establish one OSB, stop border post. I was one of the architects when I still earned the salary from there. But the private sector is telling us that in Busia, your board chairman has been in trenches with me. In Busia, go there during the rainy season, you'll find the maize and all the grains in mud. During the dry season, it will be in dust. The key value chains in Busia are maize and lentils, and this is a study conducted by Trademark East Africa, and fruits and vegetables. Now, our exports
Mr. Sabit, as you wrap up.
is going as chicken feed. So as Pat said, we are working on that to make sure that UK fund, which Uganda is actually signing, fixes this infrastructure. 2 more points. The second last one is we are developing what is called an export credit fund. These challenges we are mentioning in trade logistics, in exports and all that, we can't be efficient unless we have affordable finance. The Uganda Bankers Association, they launched a 1 trillion shillings facility where they will be lending at 12%. But this is still very high. So we've made a proposal to His Excellency that let the private sector, particularly the Apex institutions, put their money, Bank of Uganda puts their money, and we've talked to Afrexim and other venture capital funds so that we get interest rate low. These companies here you're talking about, Mr. Yebade, from China, they are bringing money from their governments at 1%. And that's how they penetrate markets. The last one is what we've adopted as a new approach to markets. We do appreciate that we have our embassies and missions abroad. But we've worked with everyone to appoint what is called trade representatives. In the DRC, we have a trade representative who we refer to if a Ugandan wants to export to DRC. They know the market, they know the laws, they know the customs procedures. In the UK, we've done the same. In the USA, we've done the same. These are people who are on the shelves, business people, who are able to tell us that, look, for you to penetrate this market with coffee, you need a roastery. You need to roast coffee in London. And I think by doing that, we shall increase our exports. Finally, pay attention to the airlines. Uganda Air Cargo, we want it revived to transport cheaply. You can't compete with the, these Argentina on beef in Kinshasa. No, when you are delivering at $5 per kilo. So we have to fix that logistics to be very competitive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sabiti. Quite a lot, ladies and gentlemen, is going on in this country, as you can hear. And for you in the room, if you're a private sector player, this really opportunities for you to tap into this market. You may not be an exporter, but there is a range of services that the private sector can take up. So that's a challenge we are throwing back to you. Mr. Yebare, in 5 minutes, what is your reaction to the discussion that you see here? One, as a convener of this dialogue, and as a passionate private sector player.
Thank you so much, Nelson. Don't think this is audible. Thank you so much, Nelson. And I'm happy we've had this discussion. Probably I'll react on some few points that we've discussed.
And as you start that reaction, Mr. Sabiti mentioned the product. And ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we're embarrassing ourselves. We go and open up these markets. Then when people place orders and we can't raise quantities that we can take to the other markets, and people asking us, why did you come here in the first place if you haven't sorted your house back home? Secondly, when we went to South Sudan, the feedback I got from there is that we are not your dumping ground. Uganda, stop. You know, we've seen you complaining about other countries dumping in your the goods in your markets. Also, we don't want you to come and dump your products here. So yes.
Thank you so much. I will start with the Trademark East Africa. Trademark East Africa has helped us a lot, mostly on one-stop border centers. I remember in the past we used to clear a container at the border around 5 to 7 days. Because you'll be in about 10 to 15 kilometers. And still you have to clear both sides, the exit part and then the entry part. But today, with single administrative documents, you clear in a day, you're done. Even less than a day, a truck crosses. So with OSBF, I think we are doing well.
Okay.
However, when these are developed, they almost help in imports only. That's the challenge. Because internally where you're developing them or where you're facilitating, internally they are not organized. If you're talking about, for example, coastal countries like Tanzania and Kenya, we are giving Mombasa port for about 10 to 5 years now. 80% of the cargo, the import cargo that comes to Uganda is Ugandan cargo. What is our percentage of the cargo that we take there? So the facility is there, it is first, but then the organized take it than us. Then there was an issue that was raised by Zone 4, my friend Mr. Kyles and brother. One of the things you need to understand, Congo also has exports. Congo has palm oil. I've been discussing with my partners. Congo has exports. We have palm oil, we have rubber, we have cocoa, we have minerals. We have a number of exports from Congo. The challenge is, you are a landlocked country. What is your opportunity? Because what are you foregoing? Knowing your problem as a landlocked country, what are you foregoing? You have interest in Congo for market. By the way, which covers a big market than most of the countries we are running to. But what are you foregoing? If you're bringing the price of palm oil, the taxes for palm oil here by air, very expensive, my partners will tell you, then it simply means that you run to Indonesia and Malaysia for palm oil and leave the one nearby in Congo. The taxes are high. How do we mitigate? What do we forego for us to get into these markets? So also knowing that our transport, our connectivity in the countries we are interested in, calculating our interest and what we can forego is by policy. I wish government people were here to understand that policy on logistics, even when it is a liberalized country, the moment you don't manage your logistics, it simply means that you're leading the wrong direction. This is not something you leave. Mostly in a landlocked country where you have less opportunities for export, you must have the right policy that supports logistics. And then there was also an issue with standards. Standards for exports, like I said in my keynote speech, standards for exports start from farm gate. Today, I will tell you have harvesting avocado from most of our villages by throwing stones. There's nothing else. You harvest by throwing a stone and then you hit the avocado, it is down. With the damage, you're on the market. Then you want to compete with avocados whereby they are harvesting in the right way. We can't be competitive. Transportation. If you look at the transportation we have, it's very poor. Matoke loaded with avocado, avocado loaded with meat. We can't get there. Cold storage services here, the only cold storage services you'll find is in Kampala. But how many fruits grow at City Square? How many fruit trees have you seen at City Square or on Kampala Road? None. So we need to extend logistics services to the farms, to where productivity is, so that we can now start managing standards from there. Standards in storage, transport, and export, so that we can be competitive on the market. With free zones is a good idea, but the challenge is one. We are talking about free zones in a landlocked country, whereby getting, for example, a container from China, I will deliver it at about 4,000 in Mombasa, but I still have 3,000 in transport. So the application of the Free Zones Authority must be, what do we forego to attract? Why would Toyota or Mercedes-Benz bring a manufacturing plant in a free zone here, or an assembling plant in a free zone here, and leave Kenya, which is cheaper, or Tanzania? So the challenge we have is we are neighboring coastal countries which have more chances than us. But what are we foregoing so that we can attract them to come? So those are most of the points, basically, I had to make.
Thank you, Mr. Yebale. So we've run out of time. Our 1 hour is spent. For our viewers live on TV and those online, we'll continue the discussion offline on the social media channels. That's YouTube, that's Twitter, and Facebook. So please continue the discussion. We'll get an opportunity to interact with your feedback. Even the people in the room will get an opportunity to get your feedback, to react to these issues. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, your country is very busy opening up borders, and that means opening up opportunities for everyone. However, actually, they are responding to our voice as private sector. We need the markets out.